it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So thank you so much for joining us. I'll be bringing you up to speed with what is happening in the news. And among the headlines we're bringing you this morning is that bowing to pressure, Deputy Police IG Eliud Lagat steps aside, cites public interest surrounding Albert Ojwang's death investigations. And from former CJ David Maraga dismisses Police DIG Eliud Lagat stepping aside as not good enough, he calls for his resignation. And over 500 gold mines in West Pokot shut down over safety and legal concerns. And definitely health experts raise alarm over mental health crisis among survivors of the April 2024 Maimahiu dam tragedy that left 60 people dead. And remember, Vivian has also talked about having health experts in the studio, just talking matters, mental health, and focusing on men. So all that will be coming up later, but right about now, Deputy Inspector General of Kenya Police Service, that is Eliud Lagat, has stepped aside amid deepening controversy over the death of teacher Albert Ojwang. In a statement, Lagat said his decision was made in good and conscious thought of the weight of his office and the public interest surrounding the case. The announcement comes as investigations intensify, placing the spotlight on Lagat's office and raising serious questions about accountability within the security sector. Ben Chumba opens our bulletin this morning.
Deputy Inspector General of the Kenya Police Service, Eliud Lagat, has temporarily vacated his position. Lagat cited the need for impartial investigations into the death of Albert Ojwang, a teacher whose case has sparked outrage and a flurry of questions within the national security establishment. In a statement released from Vigilance House on Monday, Lagat stated, quote, "In the good and the conscious thought of my role and responsibilities, I have today opted to step aside pending completion of investigations." End quote. Eliud Kipkoech Lagat is a seasoned career police officer with over 25 years of experience in the service. He was the commandant of the General Service Unit GSU before his current role. Lagat has served in various capacities, including Deputy Head of Crime Scene Support Unit, Head of the Investigation Bureau, and later as Head of Bomb and Hazardous Materials Unit. Lagat holds a master's degree in Armed Conflict and Peace Studies from the University of Nairobi and a Bachelor of Science in Automotive Engineering from the University of Eastern Africa, Baraton. But now the man once tasked with enforcing law and order finds himself at the center of controversy. While no wrongdoing has been directly attributed to him, the political and legal heat surrounding Ojwang's death has made Lagat's position increasingly untenable. He has pledged full cooperation with investigators and expressed his condolences to the family of the deceased, a move likely aimed at preserving public trust in the force. For now, his deputy takes over as the country waits for answers. But the questions remain: what happened to Albert Ojwang, and how deep does this investigation go?
And still keeping with Albert Ojwang's death and stories, Officer Commanding Central Police Station Samson Talam has been detained until Wednesday, the 18th of June, awaiting a pre-charge bail application ruling. Talam, who was arrested last Friday, is among the suspects being investigated over the death of teacher Albert Omondi Ojwang, who died in police custody a week ago. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Independent Policing Oversight Authority want the court to allow Talam's 21-day continued detention to ensure the security and integrity of the case. The technician, who was hired to tamper with the surveillance footage at the Central Police Station, has also been arraigned at the Kibra Law Court.
Samson Talam had his day in court on Monday. Shortly after 11 a.m., the officer commanding the Nairobi Central Police Station calmly took to the dock as investigation into the death of Albert Ojwang gathered momentum.
I swear by the name of the Almighty God, the evidence I shall give before this court.
The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, led by Senior Prosecuting Counsel Juma Victor Owiti, urged the court to grant the Independent Policing Oversight Authority investigator Abdirahman Jibri 21 days to detain Talam.
There is a potential criminal trial, and this is the quadruple interest. Number one, the rights of the accused individual, in this case the respondent, who is likely to be charged in a potential criminal trial. Potential witnesses, the police officers who are on duty, and any other person who was at the vicinity at Central Police Station.
Trial Magistrate Ben Makehobi was informed that Talam, being the custodian of the greatest police station in Kenya, has influence and could jeopardize the ongoing investigations.
All offenses in Kenya are bailable, but there is no greater need for self-preservation where a police officer, no less than the officer commanding the station, is intended to be likely charged with the offense of murder.
The court was also told that the false entry of the occurrence book by his subordinates and interference with the CCTV footage should be compelling reasons for his custody. However, the Central Police boss, through his lawyers led by Felix Kiprono and Clay Fombet, argued that the 21 detention is not warranted.
Investigations have not adduced any cogent reasons necessitating continued detention of the respondent.
But they're telling you something else that is imaginary, that they are yet to get some other witnesses who they are going to record their statements. What does that show you, Your Honor? That the OCS does not have the names of those witnesses or does not know them.
The defense further urged the court to grant Talam pre-charge bail, stating that he is innocent until proven otherwise and has so far cooperated with the investigators.
So at 2 p.m. on the 18th of June, on Wednesday.
The development comes even as a technician was hired to tamper with the surveillance footage at the Central Police Station was also arraigned on Monday at Kibera Law Court. This now brings to 3 suspects who are now in custody over the murder of teacher cum social media influencer Albert Omondi Ojwang. Talam, who has been in service for 29 years now, will be remanded at Langata Police Station, even as calls for DIG Eliud Lagat and the DCI officers that picked Albert Ojwang in Homa Bay County continue to mount for them to be presented in court. Ruth Wamboi reporting from Milimani Law Court.
Thank you, Ruth Wamboi, for that report. Of course, Ruth will be keeping tabs on that particular story in the courts and bringing you updates as far as we can. And still on Albert Ojwang's death, former Chief Justice David Maraga is demanding the resignation, arrest and prosecution of Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat over the death of Albert Ojwang. Maraga says that there is prima facie evidence that Lagat directly or indirectly is implicated in the illegal arrest, torture and murder of Ojwang. As Joseph Wakungu now reports, Maraga is adamant that the decision by Lagat to step aside is merely a first step in ensuring justice for the slain teacher.
Former Chief Justice David Maraga has welcomed the decision by Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat to step aside. Maraga, however, says it shouldn't end there. Hours before Lagat stepped aside, the former Chief Justice and his allies had called for his arrest and prosecution over the death of teacher Albert Ojwang.
There is prima facie evidence that Mr. Eliud Lagat, directly or indirectly, by himself or through his accomplices, is implicated in the illegal arrest, torture, strangulation, and the eventual murder of Albert Ojwang.
Maraga accused the Inspector General of Police and the Director of Criminal Investigations of lying under oath.
Consequently, the Kenyans have lost the trust in, the Kenyan people have lost trust in them. This cannot be allowed to continue. Our institutions of human rights and justice need a serious resetting and rebuilding.
French Democratic Movement, through its Secretary General, has demanded a transparent probe into Ojwang's murder. ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna accused the government of doing little to stem extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances.
Mimi nimesema hata hiyo vitu vingine ile MOU ilikuwa inasema hatutaki sasa, kwa sababu kama utakuja kunijengea barabara ndio Subaru ziingie vizuri bila kushughulika kubeba vijana, ndio magari ya kubeba maiti zirudi vizuri bila kupata shida kutuletea mili ya vijana yetu, hiyo barabara hatutaki.
A week after the murder of Albert Ojwang, pressure is mounting on the government to ensure justice for his family, even with demands being made for Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat to resign from office. Reporting for Prime Edition in Nairobi, my name is Joseph Wahungu.
Well, it is now mandatory for all police stations in the country to be equipped with CCTV surveillance with an external backup system. The occurrence book, commonly referred to as an OB, will also be digitized within a year to ensure it is tamper-proof. These changes are a part of policy reforms announced by Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Kipchumba Murkomen, who noted that they are among measures aimed at enhancing transparency and accountability in the National Police Service. Timothy Kipnusu reports.
In the wake of the brutal killing of blogger Albert Omondi Ojwang in police custody, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen announced a raft of reforms aimed at restoring waning public confidence of the police. Speaking Monday on the state of security in the country, Murkomen announced the mandatory installation of CCTV surveillance systems in all 1,209 police stations across the country with an external backup system.
It shall be mandatory to equip police stations with CCTV surveillance to enhance transparency and accountability. All the police stations currently standing at 1,209 shall have CCTV surveillance within the next 2 years.
At the same time, the occurrence book, commonly referred to as OB, will be digitized within a year to make incident reporting tamper-proof. According to Murkomen, this is part of a raft of police reforms aimed at enhancing transparency and accountability in the National Police Service.
The Ministry of Interior and National Administration remains firmly committed to pursuing reforms through adherence to the Constitution, continuous legislation, policy and administrative reforms, and adoption of international best practices.
All police stations have also been directed to have regular audits and performance reviews to independently examine police conduct. The NPC will also take part in community policing initiatives to enhance community integration and improve the relationship between police officers and the communities.
With the people of Kenya, we'll continue to pursue and implement the much-needed reforms within the security sector. This process will be progressive and guided by the constitutional values, best practices, and the unwavering pursuit of justice and professionalism.
At the same time, all police officers will also undergo fresh training and education programs to modernize the service. The new reforms will be centralized at every police station under the command of the officers commanding stations. It is evident that the gruesome murder of blogger Albert Ojwang and the barrage of public outcry has presented an opportunity for the Minister of Interior as well as the National Police Service to put their house in order, with many questions still going unanswered. Will the new reforms stop the killings of Kenyans? Earlier, Murkomen called for collective regional action towards eradicating drug trafficking in the continent. Murkomen called for a review of current policies on drug trafficking in the region, to tap online international networks that sell marijuana, heroin, cocaine, and other synthetic drugs.
Sustainable solutions will require us to reframe drug policy as both a public health and a development priority. As we reflect on the insight of this report and the leadership of the Eastern and Southern African Commission on Drugs, let us rededicate ourselves to this fight.
Finally, the Commission has discussed with civic society organizations, national government representatives, the harms inflicted by current drug policy approaches in the region and the possible solutions to mitigate these harms, particularly for women, young people, and children.
To other news now, where health stakeholders in Mai Mahiu have raised an alarm of an escalating mental health crisis among the survivors of the infamous Mai Mahiu dam tragedy led by Pastor John Joroge. The stakeholders who organized a free medical checkup for the victims say the aftermath of the incident has reduced them to beggars, with many having been evicted from rental houses and unable to afford basic needs, including medical care.
Kijabe Mission Hospital in Mai Mahiu was a beehive of activities on Monday as tens of victims of the infamous Mai Mahiu flash floods tragedy and their families stand up in their numbers for free medical checkup in Naivasha, Nakuru County. It is here that health stakeholders raised alarm of an escalating crisis. The victims are slowly sinking into depression stemming from the high poverty levels.
Many of them are still suicidal, and some of them tell us that this is the time that this is dawning on them that what happened really happened. They'll never see their loved ones again, and they lost everything that they had. The help has been slow in coming. We still believe in our government that the promises made will be kept, but we have in the meantime, we are doing everything we can to help them cope with the condition that they're in.
For most of them, affording basic healthcare has become a heavy burden, which has further resulted to increased cases of non-communicable diseases in the area.
Nimegonjeka niko na kama miezi 6-7 na venye anko aliniambia kuna hii hospitali, akaniambia ndio ilikuwa niende operation. So aliniambia juu hii shida yenye tuko nayo ya pesa, so siwezi pata. So niendelee kunimeza dawa nigoje hii siku.
The most common that we are seeing here is non-communicable diseases, so hypertension, diabetes. We're seeing a little bit of arthritis and other conditions.
For victims like Rachel Wanjiko, the situation has further been compounded by the government's failure to honor promises made to them, which includes compensation and resettlement.
Kwa sasa tumekuwa wengi wakiteseka mambo ya rent, juu serikali tulipia tu only 3 months, wengine watu wakajipanga. So tumekuwa tukiteseka mambo na makazi, juu mali tuliachiwa. I think tunakanga tu hivyo.
Many patients who are still nursing wounds that they sustained during the floods, and others have just general conditions that have been complicated by the fact that they lost everything, and so they have not been able to go to the hospital at all.
The 29th of April 2024 tragedy saw torrents of water tear down Kamushiri village following a culvert burst. The tragic incident left at least 60 people dead and tens are displaced from places they called home, and their hope of ever getting back on their feet now slowly fading in silence.
I think tunakanga tu hivyo. Juu wengi hatuna kazi, hatuna mahali pa kuenda, vibarua hakuna. So tunakanga tu, maisha ni ngumu. Hajairudi kama kawaida.
A look at business now, where a proposal to borrow 635.5 billion shillings locally to fund the 2025-26 budget could push up the cost of credit in the country as the government crowds out the private sector and other borrowers from the credit market. In their post-budget analysis, economists from PricewaterhouseCoopers project that the tax collection target given to Kenya Revenue Authority is high and could see the government opting for more additional domestic borrowing to fund the budget.
When we look at the estimates again, we see that domestic borrowing is budgeted at 635 billion. What are the implications of that? The deficit grows, puts more pressure on fiscal space. We borrow more in the domestic market. The implication there is likely further crowding out of the private sector from the credit markets in the local environment.
So currently, based on our interpretation of the Finance Bill 2025 and the practice currently, deductions such as SHIF and AHL do come off before arriving at the chargeable income, and then thereafter one would apply, relief such as the personal relief per month.
It's interesting when you think about the kind of mobilized revenues that the government is looking to collect this year when you compare it to prior years. Talking about unlocking, or the finance bill expected to unlock an extra 30 billion Kenya shillings, vis-a-vis, say, the finance bill of 2024, the one that was thrown out.
Where the government is finalizing a reward system for athletes in a bid to honor them and take care of their welfare. This is according to Sports Principal Secretary Elijah Mwangi, who was speaking during a public participation forum for sports policy framework review at Kasarani.
Sports stakeholders converged at the Stadium Hotel in Kasarani as the public participation forum for review of the Sports Act took center stage. Speakers during the forum emphasized on the need of enhancing inclusivity and strategic investments from the grassroots levels.
Of importance is that to make sure that we have good facilities in place, we have laws and legislation that guide us on how we conduct or we nurture, we identify talents, we nurture them.
Sports Principal Secretary says the government is working on improving athletes' welfare by inducting health insurance and a rewarding system for the retired athletes that will see them awarded pensions.
Development and welfare, we are looking into the matters to do with including insurance, pensions, health coverage, post-retirement support, and athlete representations.
Mwangi reaffirmed that the government is working to ensure that sports facilities have been developed and the existing ones revamped in a bid to nurture talent.
Under the leadership of the Cabinet Secretary and with the approval of His Excellency the President, we established a national task force to review both the National Sports Policy and Sports Act. This review is grounded on public engagement, evidence and best practice.
Currently, Kenya is guided by the Sports Act of 2013, which stakeholders believe requires some amendments.
Well, and that's how we wrap up the morning bulletin. Thank you so much for starting your day with us here on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Marie Ambo. Remember, you can always catch more of these stories and others on our website and also on our social media pages. Right about now, we take a break, but Victor Lowe will be back with People and Politics.